Sounds good. All right. Welcome to the December 9th Planning and Development Committee. We have a quorum. Our first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 25th, 2019. Okay, it was moved by Alderman Nguyen, seconded by Alderman Wilson. All in favor of approving the minutes? Please say aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. All right, next thing we have is wait, okay, that was, I got it. We are, next up is public comment. We have multiple speakers signed up. I'll go in groups of three. First is Ben Shapiro, followed by Dick Coe, and then Kelsey Davies. So we've got 9 speakers signed up, so 3 minutes apiece.
Great. Chairman Sufferton, staff, Alderman. Ben Shapiro, 1127 Dewey Avenue. I'm here to speak in favor of the ordinance 171-019, the additional dwelling unit. I've been following this as it goes through committee. It seems to have received very positive support from everybody who's looked at this. I do have a concern about the height requirement, and if you're going to build an apartment on top of a garage space, and 14.5 feet for a flat roof is simply not high enough, and 20 foot for a peak is also not high enough. But I do think this ordinance overall is a win-win for the city and for homeowners. There are about 2,000 properties in Evanston that could benefit from this, and it would mean that small property owners such as myself could benefit from all the TOD work that's been done over the years that has made Evanston such a desirable place to live. And it would mean that I could improve the income from my property and definitely extend my stay here in Evanston. So I hope that you will consider staff's recommendations on these changes and move forward with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shapiro. Next up is Dick Coe, followed by Kelsey Davies, and then Betsy Baer, excuse me.
Great. Good evening. Thank you, Chair Sufferton and members of the committee and members of the public. My name is Dick Coe, 2413 Hartree, and also president of the Evanston Development Cooperative. I'm delighted that the Plan Commission recommended the amendments to the Coach House ordinance that's coming before you today, namely to expand the Coach House opportunity beyond single-family homes, as Mr. Shapiro mentioned. However, I'm also concerned about I'm mostly concerned about the added height restriction that the commission added by stating that the coach houses cannot be taller than the principal house. I believe this zoning change is essentially telling the majority of homeowners of single-family homes that this housing option is not available to them. And a reminder that the standard height limit for accessory structures, including coach houses and ADUs, outside of the historic district is currently 20 feet. So we're only discussing a modest 2-story structure in any of the situations. So I took this idea and I looked at Cook County Assessor's publicly available data. We mapped out where the single-story homes are in Evanston, and they are predominantly on the west and southwest communities in Evanston. So I believe this amendment to the Coach House ordinance would be an exclusionary policy that would not expand affordable housing options. So I would hope you would consider striking this from the list of amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coe. Appreciate it. Next up is Kelsey Davies.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Davis, and I'm here for the granting special use permit for St. Athanasius Church to turn an R1 into a parking lot. My garage backs up onto the proposed parking lot, and we share an alley. The alley is a mess, to say the least. There are big cars that they use for pickup and drop-offs using our alley, stationary traffic, cars going too fast down the alley, impeding my abilities to come in and out of my own garage. And then they want to put a row of parking now up against already a super congested alley. They say that they're going to set the cars back 2 feet, but that's still simply not enough space. They're using the alley as a road, and it's not wide enough to be a road. And I have to use part of a parking pad that used to belong to the garage to pull into so the cars can pass and then I can dart out. So I'm standing against the off-street parking because I think it will just further the situation in the alley. It also doesn't solve their problem, which is that they want to move the parking of teachers and staff into this parking lot to free up play space for the kids. But they need 25 spaces, and they've designed 23. They've also stated in the DAPR meeting that they still need spaces for parents and for parents to come and go during the day, so they'd still have cars in the lot where they want the kids to play. So I think that you guys should go against it.
Thank you very much. Next up is Betsy Bayer, and then, forgive me here, after that, Susan something.
Bailey.
Yeah, oh, perfect. All right, cool. And then Evie Russell.
I am also speaking on ordinance 166019, granting special use. In addition to what Kelsey already spoke about, the parking issues, we live on a small residential street, and the St. Athanasius property has grown in that they've taken down over the years 2 homes. There is now 1 home left in the center. It is changing the fabric of our neighborhood significantly, and by putting a parking lot in there, it just makes it look less and less like the wonderful neighborhood that we bought into. So I am strongly opposed to moving forward with that, and we have concerns about the long-term plan of what is going to happen with that property, as they just purchased the home that's in between the 2. Well, they didn't purchase it, a group purchased it possibly on their behalf, and we're worried about what is going to happen and if it's going to all be raised and have no lovely little homes, which is what our neighborhood's made up of. So that's something that I would like the group to be aware of, that it's a neighborhood, and we'd like it to remain looking like that, whether it's through fencing so that it looks as if there's a great big side yard and you don't see the parking as you're driving down Eastwood, or something else that would ensure the nature of the beautiful neighborhood we live in. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Susan LaBailey, I'm speaking to the same issue. I've lived at 2424 Eastwood for 19 years now. When we moved there, as Betsy said, small houses, nice warm neighborhood, quiet street. It's a lot less quiet now, as is most of Evanston. Part of the block is one-way. Half of the block is not one-way because of an apartment building at Central and Eastwood. It's crazy. The St. A's proposition falls in the midst of a lot of traffic, hospital traffic, traffic for other schools, the street that changes its nature in the mid-block, and it's impacting our neighborhood. And I'm concerned. I understand St. A's interest in keeping kids safe. Nobody argues with that. But I'm not convinced that the current plan really solves that. And I do think it impacts our neighborhood at the same time that it's not solving their problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. After Evie Russell will be Peachy Greco, Mike Vasilko, and then Renatrice Pierre.
Good evening. This is regarding FISC comments re Arena Alcohol, November 25th Council. The first comment is regarding the lewd behavior concerns voiced by residents. FISC stressed that she has to deal with them 24/7. She thus has not been willing or hasn't been able to stop such behavior despite being the head of the NU City Committee. However, at the October Council NU proposed temporary events, FISC made a point of praising NU's extreme responsiveness with issues. B. FISC said, I love Northwestern students and they can pee in my yard, and every time they do, they're always very pleasant about it. But it's not something we need to get totally worked up over. I quote Ordinance 095-11, public nudity, urinating or defecating in public. A. It shall be unlawful for any person to appear in a public place in a state of nudity to make any indecent exposure of his or her person, For purposes of this section, nudity shall be defined as a showing of human male or female genitals and pubic areas or buttocks, etc. B, it shall be unlawful for any person to urinate or defecate in or on a yard, etc., or in public view. If Alderman Fisk does not like an ordinance, she is welcome to introduce a motion at council to that effect. But as long as an ordinance is part of the city code, any public official should not make light of it or encourage anyone to transgress it. It behooves to the mayor to have caught Fisk's remark and reprimanded her on it. The other remark is, we have people up at the microphone saying there are 7,000 people who would be drinking and they're all going to be drunk and they're going to go out and destroy the neighborhood. We residents never said that. We gave you science reports that about 8% of patrons, that's 500 people, if 7,000 people attend, would exceed back limits. We raised safety concerns of drunk driving, not on mass rioting behavior. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. And then I also have someone signed up named Willie, but that's the only thing that just says Willie. Okay.
Okay. Salutations, everyone. So I'll get to the point. A coup d'etat most of the time occurs when a nation, its people decides through military force to remove a leader. Or sometimes it occurs when a nation a leader is taken out of that position by another nation. But a coup d'etat can also come in a less obvious form. It can come in the form of firing a person or personnel from a key position for a critical program that's been, on the table back and forth for being ended, okay? So unfortunately, some of us know what's going on with the firing of Kevin Brown. It's not about tickets. It's about injustice. So if the city of Evanston is serious about reparations, which is repairing a damage, specifically toward non-white people, and if it is also serious about justice, which is a balance between people in which no one is mistreated and people who need the most help get the most constructive help. If you are serious, I propose this theory. Let us see you reinstate Kevin Brown immediately and make the young adult and the youth program as untouchable as every other program that the city of Evanston has. And I'll end my turn.
Pete, sorry. No. It's I just would like to remind Pete Jangrago was up on item P3. I just like to remind everybody this is Planning and Development Committee. There's still a city council meeting to follow. Pete was up on agenda item P3, and then okay.
Not nearly as exciting, but I'm here to speak in favor of Ordinance 171-019, regarding accessory dwelling units. I just make two quick points. I think this is, whatever the intent of the language in the ordinance, the effect is discriminatory. I think it's wrong that those of us who live on the east side and have a 3-story building house can build something, a garage with 2 stories, can build an ADU, and yet someone elsewhere in town who's at a single-story dwelling or a 2-flat can't. It's just an equity issue flat on the face of it. So I think that is really the essence of it. The second part of it is we now put in, as Dick said, 2,000 more properties that could potentially create more affordable housing, and this is an easy way to fix what's been a really vexing problem for Evanston, is to try to make this place as fair and welcoming and equitable as we can be. So this is to clean up a well-intentioned but flawed piece of language, and I hope that you will move to do that today. Thank you.
All right, Willie. And again, just remember that there's a council meeting after this. You can sign up for public comment there. I think that may be your intended audience, but welcome.
All right. My name's Willie Floyd. I have been a resident in Evanston for 30 some odd years. I live at 2312 Greenleaf, beautiful neighborhood, and I'm here to support Kevin Brown reinstatement. I believe that he's been in the community helping, and he's going to keep on, and that's what I'm here for. Come on, say something. This is Patrick.
Name's Pat, resident. Reinstate Kevin Brown.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Vasilko, for
Before I start my official comments, I guess I'd like some clarification on what Alderman Rainey unilaterally said about the NU liquor license just being passed on to the city council tonight. If the city can't get its schedule organized so that it was supposed to be discussed at APNW and it just automatically gets kicked back to the city council, that seems like, and it wasn't voted on at APNW to do that. It was just Alderman Rainey saying, we'll just take it at city council. That doesn't seem like an official process to me. It sounds like one person creating the rules. So I'd like that to be clarified, if that's the proper way that was supposed to be handled. You were at APNW.
Mike, you got 3 minutes. We could sit here for another 2 minutes and 15
Okay,
seconds.
well, that wasn't part of my 3 minutes. That was asking
that's not
somebody
true.
to take care of that.
Michael, and please.
Okay, I'll start my 3 minutes. For P&D, items P4 and P5, same kind of comment. Why can't applicants and the city council and the staff get their act together so they don't have to ask for suspension of the rules? In this case, Peter Braithwaite on 2 items, P4, P5. Those should not be, the rules should not be suspended. Those should be discussed properly, give citizens proper amount of time, pick it up at the next council meeting. For tonight, I'd like to follow that with a statement about the city council conceding its authority to Northwestern University as the governing body in the city of Evanston, setting its own precedent from waiving zoning ordinances, requirements, et cetera. The zoning ordinance simply now must be rewritten to say, trust me. That's all that's required when it comes to Northwestern. Going forward, please don't preach to us about how important the process is when you could care very little about the process. The mayor and the aldermen own their legacies as the tax and spend council. More accurately put, you are the spend first and tax later council. That's something that will be your legacy going into the next elections. P&D, our mayor, the council, and the city manager take offense when citizens embrace an elected official or 1 and 2 staff members who we really like. You have been in fear of the city clerk's popularity. Clerk Reed has so far survived your onslaught despite your best efforts to remove him.
Mike, you've got 15 seconds.
I'm sorry?
You have 15 seconds.
Again, my first comments had nothing to do with P&D.
Mike, you get 3 minutes of the microphone. You can sign up.
Lawrence
council.
Hemingway and Hemingway and Erica Storley were apparently in fear of Kevin Brown's popularity, so they fired him.
All right, Mike, please just sign up for
Along
council
with
and make
others
your comments then.
in their own Friday night massacre.
Mike,
The mayor and the aldermen have
I
done
really
nothing to
encourage you to
support
run for
Kevin
alderman,
Brown
Mike.
and have done nothing to help him return to his position. Whereas Lawrence Hemingway, Laura Biggs, and Erica Storley apparently find cancer-causing products suitable
Mike,
for the
come on,
artificial
man.
turf in the Robert Crown Center Ice Palace.
you still have an
They
opportunity.
turn a
to counsel,
blind
Mike.
eye to the
You're
health and
embarrassing
safety
yourself.
of Evanston's citizens who will be exposed to it, primarily the children. Why? Because you're going to get a few dollars in advance. Laura Biggs reportedly told citizens.
Mike, look, you can do this at council. You get 3 minutes, sir. Come on. You have time at council, Mike.
It's ironic that
This is planning and development. This isn't relevant to this committee's work, Mike.
Evanston's children, and he gets fired. Lawrence Hemingway, Laura Biggs, Erica Storley were put in charge of
Mike.
caring for our children. They put our children at risk, and they get a salary increase. The council needs to correct that. Fire Erica Storley, fire Laura Biggs, fire Lawrence Hemingway,
Okay.
and rehire Kevin Brown.
Mike. Thank you, everybody, for your comments this evening. Moving on to items for consideration. Item P1, Alderman Ravel, do you mind taking item P1? I believe it's your ward.
Actually, I think it's Alderman Fisk's ward.
Is it? Judy, I apologize. I should study the map.
That's okay. Okay, Resolution 133R19, approving a re-subdivision of 2441 Ridge Avenue /840 Milburn Street. While staff does not recommend the adoption, approving, I do recommend approval. So I'm going to recommend approval.
Okay, it's been moved by Alderman Fisk, seconded by Alderman Wilson. Is there any discussion? Okay, there's no discussion. Alderman Ravel.
Oh, well, I just would be interested in staff's, why staff recommended that we don't approve this subdivision, re-subdivision.
I don't know if
It
public.
was in the memo a little bit. I mean, it's the parcel ends up not being a straight line, basically, and there's an easement tacked onto the edge of it, so just for,
It keeps it cleaner when you have a straight line on a parcel.
Right.
And with the zigzag makes it a little more challenging when other issues come up down the line of what 2 feet are where and.
at the same time, the explanation for why the property owner wants to do it makes a lot of sense. Okay. We good? We can vote?
Sorry, he just walked out here with my computer. He just walked in and grabbed my computer and then walked out. Trying to figure out what that's about. Anyway, yeah. All right. It's just.
I'll go get it.
Yeah.
Why don't you go get it? 'Cause
Yeah.
it's-
No. Anyway, so I was distracted by that.
Can't imagine why.
All right.
So, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
Moved and seconded.
Okay. All right. All right. I'm sorry. All right. All in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry. Alderman Rainey voted no. Is that correct?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alderman Ravel voted no. Okay. Perfect. All right. Motion passes. My apologies. All right. Next up is item P2. Alderman Ravel, will you take that one, please?
Sure. So this is ordinance 166-0-19, granting a special use for an educational institution, private and religious institution, St. A's School and Parish, to expand off-street parking in the R1 single-family residential district. And for purposes of discussion, I'll move approval.
Second.
And I'd like to make some comments.
Go ahead.
So this special use proposal requires, in my view, a difficult balancing act between meeting the needs of an important community institution while also maintaining the residential quality of the adjacent neighborhoods. St. A's is a valued community institution, and it's important that the church and the school remain healthy and viable. At the same time, the east side of the 2500 block of Eastwood has now lost 2 single-family homes, and the expansion of institutional uses there has already eroded the residential fabric of the neighborhood. So looking first at the benefits of this expanded south parking lot, it would provide St. A's students with a safer, consolidated play area on the majority of the north parking lot, but I think it sounds like there'll still be some cars parked in that north parking lot. And it would create a larger, well-designed parking area for teachers and staff, one that would meet the city's parking design standards. The current much smaller parking lot is very difficult to park in. But the proposal, in my view, does not solve the alley congestion problems during drop-off and pickup times for the school. And the neighbors have really raised to me a number of other traffic-related concerns. There is discussion in the packet on page 34 of a traffic study that was done about 10 years ago, and this resulted in a major change of the circulation pattern, with parents now directed to use the public alley behind the homes on Lincoln. So in my view, now is the time, while our attention is focused on the proposed parking lot expansion and the circulation through the campus, to do a new traffic study to evaluate the changes that were put in place 10 years ago and to see if other changes are needed or whether improvements could be made. I've discussed the idea of doing this traffic study with St. A's representatives, and I believe they're comfortable with my recommendation, because what I want to do is move to table this item until our February 10th City Council or Planning and Development meeting to allow city staff to conduct a traffic analysis at and around the St. A's campus so we can see whether there are any further adjustments that need to be made. And then at that point, we'd have a better idea of, whether we can move ahead with the parking lot expansion as proposed.
Alderman Rainey.
Well, I don't have any trouble with a traffic study, but I do have a problem with utilizing our staff to do it. I think if there's going to be a traffic study, why don't we have somebody else's time paid for? It takes time for our staff to do that, and this is a private property. And
right. Well, I believe our city staff helped with the parking study 10 years ago.
Well, but times have changed.
True. I did have a discussion with this with our interim city manager.
I know, and we try to help everybody, but this is. I just think that it wears on our staff to keep helping everybody in these cases. This is something that developers pay good money for, and perhaps the church even has a traffic engineer or a traffic consultant in their congregation. They should ask first. I think it's costly. What are they getting? 8 parking spaces, 7 parking? I don't know.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Alderman Wilson.
Yeah, let's, I guess, go ahead and table then. There's plenty of time between now and February to work out the logistics on that, and if a plan for them to, pay for part of it or all of it, then that's great.
Laura, would you like to come to the podium and talk about what's involved in the staff resources involved in the traffic study like this?
Certainly. My name is Laura Biggs. I'm the city engineer. So to do the parking study, it is a fairly significant time commitment on the part of our traffic engineer and our traffic technician that would do the counts. It can be done, though, in-house. It could also be something that we or the people from St. A's could contract out on. It'd just be juggling priorities.
Thank you. I appreciate the input. All right, so we had a motion to table, and it's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Next up is item P3, which is ordinance 171-019, amending Title VI for the accessory dwelling unit requirements and qualifications. The Plan Commission and staff recommend City Council adoption of ordinance 171-019, a zoning ordinance text amendment to revise the definition of coach house and regulations related to accessory dwelling units. Staff is requesting consideration of the height restriction proposed by Plan Commission, which would require that an ADU be shorter than the primary residential structure, as this could hinder the ability to expand affordable housing opportunities in an equitable manner. This is for introduction. Do I have a second? All right. It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Revelle.
Yes, pursuant to our code of ethics regarding conflict of interest, I will be recusing myself from discussion and voting on this item because of a personal interest in the legislation due to my role as a member of the Evanston Development Corporation Cooperative.
All right. Thank you. Alderman Fisk.
Yes, thank you. I think Mr. Giangreco made the points that I was going to make, and I will be supporting this.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none? Alderman Wilson.
It gives us time, it's just for introduction, so it gives us time to work out that height issue before our action meeting, so just to clarify that.
Okay. All right. So all in favor of introduction? Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. Brings us to item P4. Alderman Braithwaite is not here, so I'll go ahead and introduce that. Ordinance 172-019, extending the time for the applicant to obtain a building permit for 1815 Ridge Avenue. Staff recommends City Council adoption of Ordinance 172-019 to extend the time for commencement of construction of the planned development at 1815 Oak Avenue, originally approved on July 25th, 2016. The ordinance would grant an extension of 30 days for foundation permit issuance and 90 days from the date of foundation permit issuance for building permit issuance. Due to the single city council meeting in December, Alderman Braithwaite requests suspension of the rules for introduction and action at the December 9th, 2019 city council meeting. This is for introduction and action. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of extending the deadline?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. And then Alderman Fisk, will you do item P5, please?
So P5 is ordinance 173-019, granting a special use.
I hate to interrupt, Judy, sorry about that.
Yeah.
There is Alderman went caught a little Scrivener's error in P4's text, so.
On the agenda, this is for, in P4, it's, the address is 1815 Oak Avenue, but in the heading, it says 1815 Ridge, and in the blue typeface ordinance at the bottom, it says 1815 Ridge. I haven't checked.
So it's Ridge.
It is
Yeah,
Ridge,
yeah,
it's
Ridge.
not Oak. Okay, all right, thank you. Mhm.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Where was I? Okay, granting a special use for a cannabis dispensary at 1804 Maple Avenue in the Research Park District. Zoning Board of Appeals and staff recommend adoption. And the applicant has complied with all zoning requirements and meets all of the standards for special use of this district. Due to the single city council meeting in December, Alderman Braithwaite requests a suspension of the rules for introduction and action at tonight's meeting. So I move introduction and action.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes as well. Items for discussion.
Sir, Alderman Sufferton, could you go back to the ADU ordinance? It wasn't clear from your vote if the Planning and Development Committee wanted to change the Plan Commission recommendation. So what the ordinance that I think is in the packet is the Plan Commission recommendation versus the discussion that you had on the height restriction is a change to the ordinance. So if you could make an amendment.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, is there someone with a motion to amend?
I would like to move with regard to ordinance 171019 that we amend the ordinance to revise the height limitations, which will be done before the next meeting. Okay.
All right, it's been seconded by Alderman Rainey. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes. Okay, let's vote. Vote on the.
So I move that we introduce the ordinance as it will be amended.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Is there any items for discussion? All right, items for communication. Do I have a motion to adjourn? All right, all in favor? We are adjourned. City Council will begin in 8:30.